the two leading candidates as it stands, it looks like it's Xabi Alonso and De Zerbi at Brighton. Both, it's a different world we're living in. I remember when Brendan Rodgers left, and the two main links were Jurgen Klopp and Carlo Ancelotti were the two that everyone was pretty much speaking about. Two guys with a massive track record of delivering the biggest trophies. Now, Alonso might go on to do that. De Zerbi, not so much. I mean, although there's a chance he can do well in Europe and obviously in the domestic cups. It is a little bit of a different world. You know, like you talk about, like when he went and got Jurgen and his ability to then to be, you know, he walked in and everyone knows he's the top manager, and therefore signing players might be easier. For example, again, what do you think of the Alonso and De Zerbi links? It's a little bit like you're never going to get no one as good as Jurgen Klopp. The best you can hope for is that they're the same. But yeah, Liverpool are going down a little bit of a different route, it looks like, because there's no candidates out there who can just go, here's the medals, who really suit. It's your Zidanes and your Mourinhos, and that doesn't quite feel like the right fit. It looks like, by all accounts, that's what Thomas Frank's name linked as well. It looks like it's like Liverpool are going a little bit like for maybe kind of like what City did with Arteta, where you now he hadn't had as much experience as these two I'm talking about, but someone who hasn't done it yet, but you think can go on to do it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, it's difficult because Liverpool have not had to do it, obviously, in the sense of they've not had to do this really since Kenny left. And that was the world was different, you know, in football. And Liverpool would never take the Rangers manager now, you know, regardless of his. And we saw that with Steven Gerrard was there, regardless of his connections in the past. Liverpool went and took Graham Souness after that, but you can't do that now. It has to be. There's far more boxes that need ticking really for elite clubs in terms of, you know, your Champions League experience, transfer market experience, worldwide pull, media handling ability, and that kind of thing. What I would say about Alonso and De Zerbi is I think there's a timing element of it, and I think it's pretty clear that those two are going to end up at a big club soon, and that's with the greatest respect to Bayer Leverkusen and Brighton. They're going to get a chance at a big club, which whether they take it or not, that's independent really, but they're going to get a chance. So from a Liverpool perspective, there is an element that this might be the only chance you ever get to get one of them as your manager. If you think they're the right guy, that this might be the only chance, because they might end up at City and Real Madrid and be amazing, and then you're never going to get them as your manager because they're there and they're in the building, aren't they? Now, I understand why people would have reservations, and I've had a lot of messages of people who have expressed reservations about both of those candidates, because obviously, Xabi Alonso, essentially, this is his first full season as a manager, and let's be frank, he's had a brilliant run, but it's only January and they're only 2 points ahead of Bayern Munich, and they could easily finish 10 points behind them and go out in the Europa League last 16, and it's suddenly forgotten as being this incredible season. It becomes this kind of disappointment. So De Zerbi, I haven't quite got the league table. I will have a look at it now, but Brighton are in the league table, what, 8th? 7th, 11 points outside the Champions League, 8 points outside the Europa League. Doing well in the Europa League, but that's okay. That's great for Brighton, but that's sort of okay. You can pick holes in the argument and say they don't score many goals, or they don't score enough goals, or they don't keep enough clean sheets. You know, whatever you want to do. He rotates a bit too much. He's a bit fiery on the touchline. There's a lot of things that you could point at him. I think the question for me would be, if Liverpool think that one of those two is the right one, it's probably now that they're going to have to do it. You know, I don't think they could sort of say, do you know what, we'll let De Zerbi wait another year at Brighton and see if he carries on, or we'll let Alonso wait, because they're not going to be there for another year. They're probably going to move on somewhere else. So you might end up in a situation where, oh God, you know, Man City have got Alonso now and we've missed our chance, or Man City have got De Zerbi, we missed our chance. So I think it might have to be, if you're going to go down that sort of route of the next, as I said, the young or the up and coming bright thing, it might have to be now.
And on that, really, I was about to say, again, we're guessing Liverpool have done really well to keep their story under wraps. We all found out on Friday, so you know this is a bit hypothesizing. But like, do you think those two are the two that we're looking at really? Because again, when Brendan Rodgers left, I think straight away every single report was it's going to be Ancelotti or Klopp. I think everyone pretty much had that nailed down. Before that, obviously, there was a lot of talk. Obviously, Brendan's hired. There was a couple of other names, Martinez, etc. Would you think it is going to be one of those two if you had to guess? Because it's hard really to think of anyone else, especially, and I want to get your thoughts on this in a minute as well. Like, it's been announced that Pep's leaving Liverpool as well, because there was an idea that there could have been a succession plan there. But yeah, do you think it is Alonso or De Zerbi, or can you see another name that really?
No. Yeah, I mean, I don't expect FSG to veer too far away from their sort of model. So Klopp, in a way, was a little bit of a deviation. Obviously, he was a bit older, a bit more established, obviously, than Brendan Rodgers, who was their first sort of big appointment. I know they brought Dalglish in as a sort of a stopgap that became an 18-month appointment, but Rodgers was the one that they went towards, wasn't he? And it was either him or Roberto Martinez at that point, and they were sort of in that bracket as we think they could potentially be elite managers, but we'd have to go on a journey with them. But was it a change in policy? But the way that they've run the club since has always been about, well, it's not about the sort of next 6 months. It's about putting value on for the longer term. I don't expect them to go down a firefighter route, a Mourinho, for example. I think that would just be a bad call. I think Ancelotti, obviously, I don't think that's on the table. There are other managers out there, that are in the betting, and you look at that. You mentioned a couple there. There are some in the Premier League that are doing really well. Obviously, Unai Emery, fourth in the table at the moment. You've got Postecoglou, who's gone in at Tottenham and done a particularly good job. You've got De Zerbi. There are a few managers around big clubs at the moment who you could look and say, well, are they going to be there in a year's time? Pochettino, for example. Let's not say Eric Ten Hag, but that might influence Liverpool's thinking in terms of, United are going to be looking for a manager at some point. So I think I wouldn't say it's just out of those two. I think they're obvious candidates because of the job they're doing, because of the upside, potential upside that they've got, and as I say, because of the timing. But I think there are others there that you might see come to the fore. Thomas Tuchel, for example, at Bayern Munich has been one. I know he's not particularly popular at Bayern Munich, and he's had some disappointing moments in his career, but he's certainly a manager who's got a very good reputation across the world. So I think those two are understandable front runners in the race. Both, you would say, would probably be quite obtainable as well, if Liverpool to come. But I wouldn't say that they were the only two candidates that would be being considered, nor should they be.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's interesting. I went back to check this was right, actually. When Steven Gerrard was hired as the Aston Villa manager, I think me and you spoke a day or two later about it, and we both half suggested, well, he will be the next Liverpool manager, and he might be the next Liverpool manager when Jurgen Klopp leaves. Do you think now, given that Villa ended badly and that he's in Saudi, obviously we know he's just extended his contract, do you think we can categorically rule that one out, or do you think that one's cards? Because it's interesting, because I get the sense, Neil, and this is mad to say, because he's Steven Gerrard and he's like a legend, obviously the legend, if not one of this football club. It almost feels like there'd be a tinge of disappointment around the fan base if that happens, which is ironic because of who he is. But it does feel, given how it kind of went badly at Villa, and then subsequently what Unai Emery did with a very similar team, that it feels like that. I would have just presumed he was always going to be the next Liverpool manager, but now I'm getting the sense that might be.
Yeah, I mean, Jurgen said it himself, didn't he? I think Jurgen said sort of categorically he will manage Liverpool one day. It looks a lot less likely than it did. Like I say, what was that? Was that sort of November, I think, 2021? It's hard to say because, like you say, not just the fact that it didn't end well at Villa for him. And I think he was a little bit unlucky at Villa in terms of the way it worked out. I think, I don't think he was as bad as maybe history might or the rewrites might tell you as a Villa manager. I think he did some good things. He had some poor luck with injuries and some results that went against him that shouldn't have done. But the way it ended, and obviously since then, what's happened with Emery and the tune that he's managed to get out of Villa has not reflected well on obviously, or not painted Steven in a good light. Of course, going out of sight at Saudi a little bit is, you can look at two ways. It's a step down, or is it a sort of a smart move to sort of get himself back into the habit of managing, maybe away from the spotlight a little bit, and not having that kind of, that negative pressure in there. But it's hard to say that you could go from Al Ettifaq and come to manage Liverpool, having your previous two jobs been, Rangers, which great job he done and put them in a very strong position. They won the league. They were in a very strong position. The team that he built ended up getting to the final of the Europa League. Don't forget. And then a short-lived and unhappy spell at Aston Villa. I think it's very difficult to see that Steven Gerrard could be picked. There would have to have been a lot of convincing done from whoever was, in charge of the hiring process to say, no, we believe that he is the absolute right man. And don't forget, from his point of view, he must have watched what's happened to someone like Frank Lampard. Example, you must have watched what's happened to Wayne Rooney, in different circumstances. Their reputation at the top level is probably finished now in terms of, Frank Lampard. It'd be a very big surprise if Frank Lampard ever managed to sort of anything like a top 10, 15 Premier League club, given what's happened at Chelsea. It'd be very surprising if you saw Wayne Rooney managing one of the Everton or Manchester United in the future because of what's gone on. So Steven Gerrard might know that a failure at Liverpool, a dramatic failure, could be a nail in the coffin of the managerial career. Whereas if he was to go back and rebuild and go back to another Aston Villa type job, a Brighton, a Southampton, a Leeds or whatever, there is the possibility then in 5-6 years that you can end up back at Liverpool when the Liverpool's in good health. But I think now it'd be a big risk from the club's part, but I think it'll be a big risk from Steven's part as well.
And then the second part I mentioned earlier is Pep Lijnders, who's leaving as well, because again, he was the other one. If it wasn't going to be Gerrard, we all thought it was going to be Pep. He's been doing press conference. Is he getting used to doing them? And also, it turns out giving Jurgen a break because he told us he hates speaking to us all when he left the other day. But he would have been the other one, wouldn't he? It is amazing how quickly football changes, because it looks like that isn't the case. It was announced, obviously, he wants to go and pursue a managerial career. Jurgen said again in his press conference, he'd have his backing and he'd put a good word in for him anywhere. But does it look like he's not being considered then, because he didn't even announce that he's leaving the club? Because it would be odd to say he's leaving the club and then a few months later go, well, Pep Lijnders is now your new manager. That doesn't really equate.
No, I don't think Pep Lijnders was ever in the frame to be a Liverpool manager. I think that was always just an easy 2 and 2. Look, let's be fair. We're just dismiss Steven Gerrard's credentials. We're dismissing Thomas Tuchel's credentials. We're dismissing whoever else, Thomas Frank and Roberto De Zerbi and whoever. Pep Lijnders' managerial credentials are very short. Of course, knowledge of the club is one thing, but he's been assistant manager. He's been a training ground coach. He's not been, the figurehead of the club, albeit, he's been a big part of it, and let's not dismiss that. There's no way Liverpool are announcing that he's leaving the club and then saying, "Oh, by the way, we've done our due diligence process and we've decided the winner is Pep Lijnders." They would just have left him in place and allowed him to step into the breach. So, yeah, I think Pep's again. He is one that maybe, if he goes away and gets a job somewhere and becomes that kind of, you look at someone like Arteta or people like that who step up from being an assistant, go out and make themselves a first team coach. A head coach somewhere else. Maybe in 5-6 years, if he's had success, then he could come back into the fray. But I think at this moment in time, he needs to go and prove his managerial credentials. He's proved his coaching credentials and his assistant manager's credentials quite comprehensively. He's been part of a glorious era at Liverpool. But yeah, I think he needs to tick a few more boxes before he's going to be considered for a job such as this one. And I don't think it would do him any favours either. Stepping in after Jurgen, obviously the similarities and the differences will be even more stark and pointed out, and every sort of comparison will be made at that point. I think it would make more sense, given as well the fact that Peter Kravitz is leaving, obviously Peter Matthaus is leaving, that there's a bit of a clean broom in terms of the coaching staff.
Thank you so very, very much for checking out the video. If you enjoyed it, drop a like. The season is now well underway. If you need extra Redmen content, be it podcast, videos, documentaries, interviews, and general shows, fill your boots on redmenplus.com today.